Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. This week, I am joined by Mozza and by Drew. How you doing, guys?
Doing
All
well,
good.
Ash.
So the football season started. We played on Friday night, opening game at Old Trafford. A slightly disappointing 1-0 loss, as disappointing as you can be with losing 1-0 at Old Trafford. It was a bit of a mixture in terms of the game, in terms of performances, I feel. Drew, give us your sort of, without talking about the game, sort of how do you feel after the game, and is it positive?
Oh, well, I mean, the game itself, it was United's best and only real opportunities came because of our mistakes. They won because they made less mistakes than us. It's quite simple. I don't think that we were steamrolled. I don't think that it was a situation where we looked like we didn't deserve to be on the pitch. But some of the issues that we were concerned about manifested themselves. The underlying issues with recruitment came to bear. Specifically, we had a Polinius-sized hole in the centre of our midfield. We all knew that was going to be there, but here we are. This is recorded the Sunday after the game. And we still don't seem any closer to fixing it. But the game itself, I thought that Muniz didn't get a lot of service. I thought ESR probably not match fit. I was generally quite content. Didn't think we embarrassed ourselves, but when we did have opportunities, and everyone says it's about the Premier League and it's a cliche, that when you get your opportunities, you've got to take them. Obviously, the big one in my mind was the 2-on-1 when Pereira was breaking through and couldn't find the Fulham man on the left-hand side. He makes that pass, we score a goal there, changes the complexion of the game. In the end, you've got to say we were lucky that we didn't concede more because Leno made a couple of mistakes but redeemed themselves, and then Bass's air kick at the end. But all in all, disappointing result, principally because there was something there for us. And I feel, I felt this for quite a while, there seems to be a bit of a inferiority complex when we play the top six sometimes. We're never going to go. And I think, Ash, you might have said this in the preview show. We're not going to go and try and defend. That's just not in the DNA of the club. And on that basis, I think we should have just had the courage of our convictions and gone for it. But yeah, I mean, am I disappointed? I'm disappointed because there was something in it for us. But let's be honest, most of us would have expected not to win at Old Trafford. So, our season's not going to be defined by losing to Man United 1-0 at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that one of the things that you said there was it's not season defining. I think that what quite honestly happened on Friday was there's certain aspects of the game I'm annoyed with. There's certain parts of performances I'm really annoyed with and I'm frustrated with, which we'll come to in a minute. But ultimately, how weird is it? It's almost weird as a Fulham fan to be sat here going, "I'm disappointed after losing at Old Trafford." Like it's crazy. Mozza, how did you feel about the game as a whole?
Well, I went into it quite up for it, and I thought we could nick something here. I'm disappointed we haven't come back with 3 points. We could have would have, should have sort of taken them back, but it looked to a point for me after about 80 minutes where we seemed to stop pressing and we seemed to stop wanting to attack, which I found a bit odd. And then lo and behold, United scored, and I just had this feeling that they would get an annoying sort of 85th to 90 or extra time winner, and I'm just surprised it wasn't Bruno Fernandes that got it. So that's every cloud has a silver lining thing for me. But unfortunately, all I could think was that we didn't really have the strike force. Drew said Muniz didn't get the correct service. I think that is true. He would have been a legend if he'd scored that overhead kick, as he's done once before for us last season. That would have been lovely. But yeah, where we came to Old Trafford last season and we managed to get 3 points from them, I think we probably all had it in our heads that we could do that again. And I still do think we have potential to do that again. I'd love to see what happens when they come to the Cottage. But unfortunately, all I could think, we don't have a Mitrovic anymore. Sorry to bring his name up. I know it's probably a dirty word. And it's not that I long for him to come back or anything, but we haven't got that powerhouse up front, I feel, to finish it off. And we didn't take enough opportunities. Drew against the 2-on-1 Pereira. He had an absolute turkey of a game. So there were players that I thought did well, some players that redeemed themselves, some players I've got a couple of issues with. But overall, that is my take on that.
I want to be positive. I don't want to be negative, but there are some negatives from the game, which obviously I feel like I want to get out of the way so I can then talk about the positives. And the funny thing is that 3 or 4 of the players I felt I've got negative points about certain aspects of their game. I've got positives too as well, so it's not that negative. You know, you've just said it. I think that Pereira on Friday was so frustrating to watch. He's done it 4 or 5 times in his time at Fulham where his final product decision making is shocking at times. He a couple of years ago, when we played Everton at home, he had an opportunity where he basically rounded Pickford, and rather than putting the ball in with his left foot, he then cut back to try almost beat Pickford again, and then completely ballsed it up and lost the ball, and we didn't score. Friday night, that one on the 2-on-1 pass was shocking because Iwobi had so much space to the side of him. It's like, and Maguire didn't even defend it. It just went to him. Like, he had so much space, and he has so many decision-making aspects of his game like that, where his end product at times is just it's lacking. And now we all see why he plays for Fulham, why he's not on Man United anymore. You know, because of that, and we have to appreciate that. I think that's probably why. I will say as a positive for him, because I don't want to be too negative, and anyone who follows me on Twitter will see that I was begging Keir Traction to do his usual business and get him sold off on Friday night, but that was more out of anger because we won 2-on-1. His corners look really, really good. I thought on Friday night. I thought for the first time in a few years, we had 8 corners on Friday, and probably 6 were quite decent quality. As much as there was no one in the box to do anything with them, which is annoying because we had about a 1.5 foot average on every single United player except for Maguire. And we just couldn't make the most of it. But his free kick taking was, I don't understand why we mess around so much with free kicks and stuff. We got a dead ball situation at the end of the box, at the edge of the box, or 30 yards out, and we're trying to make funny little one-touch passes and then put it in the box. Like, we haven't scored from a free kick in forever. In fact, the last free kick I think we scored from was the one that Willian scored against Leicester, where he basically crossed it and it just bounced in. Like, we don't make most of our set pieces, and I think that's something that we need to work on. Whether that's Marco's not worried about it because he's happy with what the guys bring in the average, then that's fine. One of the other negatives I want to talk about is our crossing and how frustrating it is. We're talking about Muniz not getting the service. I made the jokey comment in our WhatsApp group on Friday night that watching Anthony Robinson and the Dharma Traore cross and trying to find someone in the box is like watching 2 blind men trying to find a light switch. Like, it's hit and hope half the time. And as good as Robertson is, and I love the amount that he's grown in the last 2 years, his end product is still really lacking. And Adama, so many positives from the game for him on Friday. I think that if he can stay fit, he's almost a new signing this year for us, because he worries defenses into the point where he gives us space because they know that they can't step to him, because if he knocks the ball around them and goes, there's very few defenders in the Premier League that are keeping up with him. And it's really good that he has that ability because he stretches the game. And I think on Friday he had a decent game with that aspect, but yet again his final product, his final cross, his final shot was just woeful. But maybe he just needs more game time and fix that. Like, Drew, do you agree with that point on Adama? What do you feel about him? Because
Stan Collymore
I'm
come
just
out and
wondering for me.
said something very similar. I mean, he didn't play hardly at all last season, and I'm not gonna get down on him. I mean, if he had consistency, if he had an end product, he'd probably be playing for a Champions League team. Let's be honest. We got him on a free. Yeah. He has something that we sorely lack in the team, and that is speed. You can teach people tactics, you can teach people skills, but you can't teach pure athleticism. You are born with it or you're not. And it's, he has blistering pace that we desperately need. As for Robinson, again, like him a lot, we'd be poorer without him. But I think that clubs at the top of the tier and the upper echelons of football look at him and think, if we're going to spend 30, 40, 50 million on a fullback, he's got to be able to cross the ball consistently. And Jedi, I love him, but what are we looking at? Maybe 1 in 3, 1 in 4. That's not good enough. You got to be hitting your, 3 and 4s really. But I think you're quite right about Adama. He does create space because of his speed. But if you look at Martinez at the beginning when he had those 2 runs, Martinez played him brilliantly, and Martinez is not as big or as powerful. He stood him up, and he didn't do anything silly, just waiting for support. So I think he could be an important player for us. Absolutely, I'm quite happy to. I still back him. But I think there's going to be quite a few more. There's going to be some real wow moments with him. That'll take your breath away. But other times there's going to be, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Yeah, I think it's going to be that sort of player. Your point about Pereira, and those that follow me on Twitter and have watched the pod have heard me say this. He's got so much talent, but he just doesn't do the simple things well. Tries to over elaborate, overcomplicate. I mean, if you're a Premier League footballer in that position he was, going back to the 2-on-1, and I'd expect you to be able to make that pass. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect you to be able to make that pass. And the whole getting the yellow card thing for dissent, that stuff like that. He's 28 years old. He's 28 years old. It's now another four yellow cards before he's suspended. It's not a great start. I mean, I do wonder with Pereira whether, and I've said this quite openly, whether he's got his eye on the exit door because he's wondering what's going to happen because the window's open. I appreciate the balance of the midfield had to change in the absence of Paulinho. I totally accept that, but yeah, it wasn't. I just sit there and I think he should. I look at him and I think he should dominate far more than he does. And it's the lapses of concentration. It's the over elaboration that do me in. I mean, I was at the game you were talking about versus Everton when he wanted to beat them 3 times. When if you score a goal from the 1 yard line, or you beat 5 players and smash it into the top right hand corner, it's still only worth 1 goal. Yeah, it's still only worth 1 goal. Doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it was a first game, so people shaking off. But it is worrying. You saw things that you'd seen before, and you kind of hoped you wouldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I want to get the last real negative out of the way before we can be a little bit positive on as an end. But I was really uncomfortable watching this play out from the back again on Friday, and I don't know if it's because I have very little trust in Issa Diop and his ability to pass out. But I was also quite disappointed with Leno and his distribution on Friday. Now, in a minute, we're going to talk about positives and we're going to talk about the absolutely 3 worldy saves that Leno made, right? But one of those saves came because of an absolute like suicidal pass out that we play ourselves in that position now. It was frustrating, and I know that it's the way that Marco wants to play, and it's not going to change. We know it's not going to change. But if anything screams, we need a new centre back. We need a right-sided centre back that has the ability to cause and play out from the back to give Leno extra options. Because I think there was it was clear a lot of the time that the only defender he could pass because there's very little faith in Diop. I feel it was that. So I think that's it. That we'll move on from the negatives. Let's talk about some positives. Leno, I think, as we say, he made 3 or 4 really outstanding saves on Friday. The first one, as I say, doesn't count because it came from his playing out, and it was a bit messy. But the 2 saves he made afterwards, the one in the first half to cut out Bruno Fernandes's shot from the outside of his foot, and the one in the second half that was sort of quite point blank, were really good. Mozza, do you think that Leno is still probably one of our best attributes in the sense of his ability to be a shot stopper?
I think so, yes, very much. A couple of howlers, like you just mentioned, where he made that suicidal error almost. But yeah, I think he's still got it in him. The way that they scored, I would have expected him to do better, actually, on that. I think maybe he could have reached a bit further, but it's always difficult when you see it from another angle, and it's easy for us to sit at home and analyse it off a TV screen and not actually be there in person and see, how difficult it is to actually save a shot like that. Maybe the defence could have done a bit better with that, really. That, like they say, your goalkeeper's only as good as your back line. But yeah, I'm still a Leno fan. Yeah, I don't really see our subs or reserves like beating into first team games, but it'd be interesting to see what happens in cup games if and when those guys do actually manage to get in the squad and have a bit of game time. But yeah, still very much a Bernd Leno fan.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think as someone who played in goal, they're the worst ones to try save because they are almost, you can't telegraph where the ball is, and there was also a few bodies in between, and you're trying to anticipate maybe someone touching it before you make a move, and it's just too late. I think that he was outstanding on Friday, and in a minute we're going to vote man of the matches, and I think he'll probably get my vote, but we'll talk about that. Overall, if we break the game down, I think that the first 20 minutes of the game we looked very comfortable, very good, but between sort of the 20 and the 45, Man United stepped up a gear that we almost looked a bit lost at, and we didn't really come into the game in that second half of the first half. In the second half, our first 10 minutes were outstanding. I thought that we did something that, as Drew alluded to earlier on, where we were maybe a little bit not. We were a little bit disrespectful to Man United at Old Trafford. We came out and we pushed and we pushed, and we didn't really let them play their game for the first 10 minutes of the second half. And it's great to see because it's nice to know that at times we don't have that inferiority complex that we all sort of feel that we'd have at times. But then it sort of slowly trickled back in again until about the 60th minute. And between the 60th and the 80th minute, I thought we looked really, really comfortable. Even with Smith Rowe going off and Tom Kenny coming on and having to make a few changes around, I think the game changed. Where we came off and Kenny came on. Because we lost a bit of an outlet and we also slowed down quite heavily in midfield. I'm a little bit disappointed with their goal, and this is what we're going to talk about. I'm disappointed with Kearney not being able to sort of telegraph Bruno Fernandes on the wing because I saw it happening, and about 5 seconds before it did. So he got played a bit there, and it sort of led to the attack. But I'm not going to bash Tom too much because him being out on the wing that far probably isn't his natural position. Drew, their goal, how disappointing was it? How annoying was it? Do you think we could have stopped it?
Well, I said in our WhatsApp group, I mean, this has got 89th Man United winner incoming, and I missed it by 2 minutes because it was the 87th. it was easily preventable, but it started. It went wrong when Kearney allowed himself to be rolled on the wing, like you said. We all know. Look, everyone loves Tom. I can see why he was brought on, because Silva wanted more possession, wanted to control the pace of the game more. And I don't have a problem with that. And I can see why he brought Reed on as well, because Reed's a natural central defensive midfielder. But their goal was easily preventable. Again, it came from our mistake. Yeah, if Tom stands off Fernandez instead of getting so tight and allowing himself to be rolled, does that happen? I'm not so sure it does. Having said that, that passage of play happened by the halfway line, so we had more than enough time to recover our shape, and we didn't. And let's be honest, going back even further, United missed an open goal after Bassey's air shot. Leno, who we've talked about, kept us in it. So, I mean, United, in theory, could have come out with a 4-0 win. It was never a 4-0 game, but it could have been. But all of those goals, without fail, would have come because of our mistakes. It wouldn't have been anything that United did.
Was it? I was Drew. Sorry, I don't mean to interject. Was it you who said in our WhatsApp group that United won because they made less mistakes?
Yeah, it was me. I said that on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And that's what happened. The presence of Casemiro, yeah, who has probably only got half a season in him, was crucial for them, because he's a real barrier in their midfield, which we don't have now in the absence of Polina. So yeah, that was basically it. I mean, it wasn't a situation where we were sitting there and it was like the Alamo. We were constantly backed up on our 18-yard line. It was nothing like that at all. We had clear periods in the game where we were probing and we were asking questions. But yeah, I mean, my view is we made more mistakes than they did. We lost, and it's just annoying. But Ash, at the beginning of the podcast, you made the great point: is that we're coming away from Old Trafford disappointed that we haven't got a result, which is, I think every Fulham fan should be sitting here thinking that is a sign of real progress under Marco Silva. So yeah, I mean, it's annoying, especially the way it happened, because it was easily preventable, and it's happened so many times. I think that's why the win against United last year, when we basically we did a United on United, felt so good, because they've done it to us so many times where they've scored in the last minute and they just don't deserve to, because they don't deserve to win. But draw would have probably been a fair result, but we definitely didn't deserve to win, and we cannot expect to make those sort of mistakes, especially at somewhere like Old Trafford, and think we're going to walk away with our goal intact, because it's just simply not going to happen. But first game of the season, so onwards and upwards.
Yeah. We want to be positive, and and be that. And we'll talk about the upcoming game against Leicester. What I think it's a much different proposition in terms of our style of play and us taking the game to them. Let's be positive. The results disappointing, but as you say, and as I said, coming away from Old Trafford being disappointed that you haven't got any points, it's a long cry away from what it used to be like for us in the Premier League, where you just wrote the game off as let's just not lose 4-5-0. And it was great. I tried to. We all were quite positive in our pre-match, in our sort of predictions of the game and what would happen. I know I said 3-2 because I thought we'd have a bit more up front, but it hasn't worked that way. It's week 1 in the Premier League. There's things that got to work its way out, and I think that ultimately we come away from that game thinking that it's a good sign for the season. We've got reasons to be positive coming out of that game. As frustrating as certain moments are, certain players were in certain situations against lesser teams than Man United, we will have much better days than what we had on Friday night if we play that way. And I think that if Marco can get those 3 players over the line, he's so desperately moaning and wanting, then as a squad we step up a level and we go from there. one last thing, lads, before we leave and before we sign off on the match review. I want a man of the match from you all, so we can sort of decide our man of the match for the game. Mozza, who do you think from the squad deserves the man of the match for Friday night?
Kenny Tete for me. I don't know if we spoke about him earlier, but I thought he had an absolute smashing performance. Yeah, and it's always difficult when you have to give the man of the match to a defender and you come out of a loss. But yeah, that's my pick.
Okay, Drew, and yourself?
I was going to pick Tete as well. I mean, Leno would be the obvious one, but Leno obviously made that one mistake. But I think Tete showed us why Tete was our first choice right back a couple of seasons ago. And I'm, of all the positions in the squad, I'm most confident with right back with him and Castagna there. I really am. And I mean, you know, people may be expecting more from other players, but I think, you know, I mean, Cess isn't even in the squad yet because he's not fit enough. Silva came out and said Smith Rowe is not as fit as he needs him to be. I think this team will be a very different proposition, you know, in 4 to 6 weeks, especially with the new signings that Silva wants. But I think on an individual basis, I think Tete definitely hit the ground running on Friday night, and I think he was great.
Cool. I would have suggested Leno. I think he kept us in the game as much as one of those saves was down to his own mistake. But I'll happily go for Tete. You know, I thought he was quite fluid on Friday. You know, him and Traore, I think could be quite a good partnership on that right wing. I think they had some really good moments of understanding. Then a few moments where you're wondering if they were speaking in the same language in the sense of, you know, just being able to find each other. But again, first game of the season, trying to blow the cobwebs off, it's not necessarily unsurprising that happened. And let's not forget that Tete probably, arguably, had one of our best chances of the game, where he drifted in and off the wing and had that shot that Onana just about managed to save. So I will happily concede that Kenny Tete should be man of the match for this game, because I think he was outstanding. And again, as you said, Drew, I'm probably more confident with our right back position than I am any position on the pitch, because I think we have two very good players in that position, and that's what we need as this club. We need good competition in every single position, and I think we have that. So, guys, thank you very much for joining me for this episode. I think ultimately, disappointed as we are about the loss, there's a lot of positives to come from it. We will be back during the week for one of our rambling episodes where we just talk about a Fulham topic, and then on Friday we should be back with a match preview for Leicester, and then hopefully we'll end next weekend in a lot more positive position than we are in this one. Thanks very much, guys.